from the bottom to the top. From the bottom to the top. Yeah, 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 yeah. To the top.
You rock 'cause we rock. We're building on the rock. No some time that's us. You gonna for Uganda. Kabuleta for Uganda. You rock 'cause we rock. We're building on the rock. No some time that's us. You gonna for Uganda. Kabuleta for Uganda. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. It is a revolution, providing a solution from the bottom to the top. We're going on a journey, yeah, yeah, yeah. To the top, yeah. To the top, yeah, yeah.
Kabuleta, providing a solution. The sing and say, Kabuleta. For Uganda, tell them say, Kabuleta. Finance or solution, me tell you this, Kabuleta. For Uganda is juggernaut.
Been across the nation, setting everyone in motion. People looking for solution, saying we are reclaiming our country again. Rebels be from the national liberation, rocking this nation. We going for
Rocking this
Uganda for Uganda, for Uganda.
Rocking this from the bottom to the top. Welcome to the Rock Nation.
Few they can fit in one room, and the rest of Ugandans are just supposed to, to survive and not to thrive. So that's what we are trying to break. We are trying to break the suppression, the oppression that is financial, and liberating people financially to go and thrive, to go and be a partakers of the national resources that are theirs by right, and not to be observers even as the national cake is being distributed, or not to see figures of growth apparently attributed to our country flying out of budget speeches and so on, without it having any impact on their wallets. Now that is what we want to change. We want any growth that this country enjoys, and we are going into a very good period in regard to growth. We want it to be a force to reckon with in the pockets of every Ugandan.
Joseph, you are talking about wealth distribution. Look, you are a man who can afford a very expensive suit, a very nice car, and a few other things. One might say that you belong to the small group of the people who hold wealth, as you put it. And is that a creation of the state or government that is serving you, or it was your own creation? And why do you want to change that?
Of course, it's not a creation of the government. If we had a more inclusive government, you wouldn't be able, you wouldn't even be reduced to describing wealth as a suit. How much does a suit cost? We're talking about real wealth, because we're talking about real wealth. So somebody having a car, driving a suit, or rather driving a car, having a suit and things like that, and you think that is wealth, that is how far this government has suppressed us, that we actually even consider a suit to be wealth. Now, we are talking about a very rich country, which is rich in all sorts of resources. And now, the corporate people, or people who, they're counting their wealth in the number of suits they have in the wardrobe. That is really sad. And actually, that's exactly what I have come to change, so that we get to a point where our wealth is real wealth, not virtual wealth. You can come out and look smart and look nice, and yet actually you are sitting on a whole load of problems at home, and but you just have to keep up appearances. Now,
Kabuleta the solution, reclaiming the nation. It's Saga Zone, we'll tell you this. Rocking this nation, from the bottom to the top. Rocking this nation.
This is what we do every Saturday morning. Welcome aboard. The hashtag on Twitter is hashtag NXT Big Talk.
This week on Wednesday, President Yoweri Museveni was sworn in yet again for the 6th term, extending his rule in Uganda for 40 years. But President Yoweri Museveni faces a number of challenges, including a young population that occupies over 70% of Uganda's population, but feels disenfranchised. How is he going to deal with the challenges? And what are the opportunities in the next 5 years for the NRM? And what should the people of Uganda expect of this new term? What is NRM and President Yoweri Museveni going to do that he didn't do in the last 35 years of rule here in Uganda? In the studios today, I have the State Minister for ICT, Honorable Peter Ogwang. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Kanare, and thank you, the viewers and all the listeners. Thank you so much.
I also have the former presidential candidate, Joseph Kabuleta, and political analyst. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here this morning.
What did you make of Wednesday's event? Let's begin from there.
Well, I'm not too different from the rest of them. Very colorful, big show of military might, which of course is a statement in itself as to why the president is going to be there with his 40 years. So there were so many things I could pick out of it. The function itself. But I don't want to be negative in that line because there were so many things that could have been better. But then there were also some things which were good for showing off the showcasing of aerial stuff and all that. However, it's more about what it signifies for Ugandans that now we have a president who is swearing in for a term that could take him to up to 40 years. What it signifies for Ugandans, what do we expect thereafter? Is it going to be any different from what it has always been? What did we get out of his speech and the talking points that he came up with there? That really is where the most of the significance is, rather than the function. The function was just a function, really. And we've had many such. But the reality is, from where ordinary Ugandans stand, and in sticking in theme with what we are discussing, what it represents for Ugandans and the youth, especially who feel disenfranchised, it's going to be more of the same. And now there's nothing new that we expect any time. That I think I stopped expecting new things after 2006. That's when I realized that this is what we have. Now the only new thing will come when there is a new person. But otherwise there are new slogans, new promises, but nothing different. We are going down the same drain for some people and up some kind of different drain for other people. So we have to study what we have, what Museveni has. I mean, what why is he doing the things he's doing? Because he's a very intelligent man. Why is he doing the things he's doing? Why is it that people continually get disenfranchised and angry every election? And you keep on thinking. I remember in 2011, because that was one election which he used a lot of money to win. And I think actually that one he really won. I don't think, of course, he won 2006. I don't think he won 2016, and he definitely didn't win 2021. But that's one he actually won, and he used a lot of money to win. And I remember him speaking and saying that now, for the first time, the whole of Uganda is together politically, because he had won every region, according to the Electoral Commission, returns. Every region of the country had apparently voted for him. So I'm saying now, if this is what you want, let's see what you are going to do in these 5 years. And man, it was austerity upon austerity, poverty upon poverty, nothing new. And that's when I realized that we're just going deeper and deeper into a rabbit hole. And there's not going to be any way out until he's no longer the president of this country, unfortunately, because he's still very much the decision maker in everything. Every single part of Ugandan decision making emanates from him. And we now know his thinking. And we now know, of course, that his speeches are, totally opposed to what he actually does. We've been too busy seeing what he does to even have time to listen to what he says. But then, of course, I listen because to him, and you have a nice laugh. Because
there was so much to pick from his speech, especially on foreign policy, on exports. There's so much to pick from COVID-19. There's so much to pick from that speech on Wednesday.
There was so you want me to talk about the speech? First of all, there was the comedy. The fact that apparently he and Jacob Zuma wanted to rally a force to go and protect Gaddafi. I found that very funny. right up there with some of the best stand-up comedy that you can ever imagine. Because Museveni going to fight for Gaddafi against the West, here is the reality. After, I think, 1992, 93, I don't think there has been a bigger puppet for the West than Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. All the talk is so bullish in his talk, but so subservient in his action that the West knows they can call upon him anytime. So they don't care what he says. Because he arranges those things. You know, he goes to State House, meets some diplomats and tells them off how they have no ideology, what, you're ideologically bankrupt, and so on, and that leaks to social media so that certain people believe that, you know, he's that. But then afterwards you see that he's doing exactly what they tell him to do, how they tell him to do it. When they say jump, he jumps so high because he's a survivor. And he knows that he has managed to, you know, subdue the Ugandan population in a way that is not going to be too much of a threat. I wish it would be on his presidency. Now he sees the threat as external for the most part. Of course, because they're the ones who give a lot of the finance. We cannot even collect half of our, you know, our budget. They're the ones actually who have the ammunition. Now, the only times I've actually felt him speak, and he's really the only time I've felt him speak about the West and their ability to disorganize Africa, and I felt it was genuine, was his comments after the death of Magufuli. And I read a lot into that because he came from so much, he does a lot of this historical analysis and so on, and he was implying something, which all of us know what he was implying. But he's a survivor. And the idea that, first of all, let's get this straight. If you read the WikiLeaks cables back then, Museveni was asking America and NATO to protect his plane against Gaddafi. Now we are supposed to believe that he actually wanted to go and run a force to protect Gaddafi against the West. That's a joke. Secondly, which was the first country to seize Libyan assets when UN froze them? Let me tell you the first countries, Uganda and South Africa. We are the first, before anybody else did it, we were the first to go and do it. They came back in 2019 trying to get back their assets. And they have been given some bit of a run around about it. You know, where the Libya oil, the UTN and so on, where they had a lot of interest, national housing and so on. So it is such a big joke that he actually can go up there and tell such an incontrovertible lie, which everybody knows is a lie. He would be more likely to go and join America to hit Gaddafi. And as soon as it became evident that Gaddafi was in trouble, when the people of Benghazi cut out, guess who was the first person to come and say that his biggest mistake was to involve himself in the indigenous affairs of other countries? Museveni. So I just looked at that and I said, I mean, this man really thinks Ugandans are fools.
So you're saying his comments were not realistic?
Not realistic. They were lies. Don't get to put words in my... They are lies, number one, and they were absolute comedy. Way up there with the best stand-up comedy you'll ever get. And the whole bullishness with the West, you know, warns Western actors and what. Just wait and see what he does. When they say jump, he will ask how high. That's how he has managed to survive all these years. And let me tell you, people who have stood up against them, and he has seen them one by one going down. After, I believe the first maybe 5 years or maybe 6 years of his presidency, he still had a lot of this communist ideology and so on. And he had things, some ideology by which he went, which was more than just survival. But when Bill Clinton, the first thing he does in 1992 after he becomes president, goes and destroys Yugoslavia, which was the only communist country in Europe and was kind of sticking out like a sore thumb right there in Europe, a communist country, and they went and split it into all sorts. It's like they threw a piece of China on the ground. Suddenly, I think Yugoslavia turned, they probably now are 8 nations out of that one country. After that, people like Museveni who are survivors knew communism has failed to hold its own. Now, he went full blast capitalism, down to the privatization, down to everything. All the IMF and World Bank policies, everything, he actually moved from one extreme to a... And I don't think there's any country that has implemented those things more enthusiastically than Uganda has, or indeed has implemented any of the things about, the West telling him to go to Burundi, which was not an official thing, going to South Sudan, going to Somalia. Everywhere they tell him to go, everything they tell him to do, he does it. But, of course, they are pragmatic, those Bazungu. They will let you talk. because you have to keep your, constituency in order. So you come and talk big and so on. It's almost like a girl who is going to deny canary in front of her parents and then pass a cheat in his hand, meet me behind the mango tree, sort of thing. So they will let him do that, and they will stand there, and they will almost look even subdued as Museveni is telling them off. But they know. After that, they will go and tell him what to do, and he'll do it. And that's what it has been.
Okay, let me bring in the Honorable Minister. We've just been joined by the outgoing leader of opposition, Honorable Betty Aolo-Chan. Thanks for making time here with us.
You're welcome. Good morning, everybody, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Okay, we'll get to you in just a bit, but let's first hear from you. What were your highlights from this speech and the entire event of Wednesday swearing in of President Yoweri Museveni?
First of all, I'd like to begin by thanking His Excellency the President for swearing in. Number two, I also want to take my opportunity to thank my brother, Joseph Kabuleta. I have been a very, very strong fan and a reader of his pieces, mostly in sports. But also I want to thank him for contesting for the position of the president. So there are very few Ugandans who have that courage. So my brother Joseph, thank you so much. Thank you for Of course, that was expected.
Well, maybe not by me, but
there was no way.
But thank you for the courtesy.
Yes, because it's very, very important that office, like some of us who participated in the amendment of the Constitution, that was when my sister and the leader of opposition here was telling people not to do so. However, I have the following issues which I need to raise. And I'm happy that my brother Joseph has raised some of the fundamental issues, specifically as far as the swearing-in ceremony is concerned. Number one, the colleagues who had contested with His Excellency the President had been invited to come to Kololo to witness the swearing-in. My good friend here didn't come, and I want to thank him for the courage. However, 2 or 3 things which I want to the country. First of all, I am very, very happy with the speech which the President made. And specifically for me, that speech covered 4 fundamental pillars of the NRM. That's number 1 is patriotism. Number 2 was socio-economic transformation. Number 3 is a question of democracy. Number 4, which of course is what we need to really continue to advocate most times, was the question of which of course the President has always been talking, which in most times is exactly why we are here today. This speech, by the way, for me, who has been a very good student and a reader of almost all speeches of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, in my opinion, has been one of the best speeches he has made, both for the local people of Uganda, African continent.
What benchmark are you using here when you say it's the best?
The reason why I'm coming to explain to that, and it's entirely going to to address some of the issues which my brother Joseph has raised here. For God's sake, and for a long time, how long is Africa going to be what it is? We are 54 countries. You do not have a seat in the UN Security Council. And we are here. What are we doing as a continent? Let's look at some of these nations in Europe. You can see small nations, but they have a UN security seat in the UN Security Council. What are we doing as Africans? If we are to survive, leaders of today of African continents, if young leaders of us don't begin to look at what were the founding fathers of African continent planning to be. If Julius Nyerere was to wake up today, if the late April Milton Obote was to wake up today, if the late Uhuru Kenyatta, Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, Nelson Mandela, Muammar Gaddafi talk about Abdel Nasser who was in Egypt, if honestly their vision is to be realized, is that what it is today? That's why you see, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni reminded us, it's only Ethiopia which was not colonized. Why? How did Ethiopia manage to defeat the Advents who wanted to colonize it? Now here today, we are saying Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is contradicting himself. He did remind us, even when he came into power, he told those whites, when they were asking him, are you a pro-West or a pro-East? His question was, is he pro-Africa? Why do they want you to be pro-East or pro-West? So for me, as far as Yoweri Kaguta Museveni issue is concerned, when we talk about Uganda in particular, what are our interests? Talk about patriotism. We are looking at tribalism, religion. Is that what it is today? My quest as a businessman today does not need my tribe. And this is the question Museveni is trying to remind the people of Africa. And I'm happy he was speaking to his colleagues, because at the continental level, everybody today is looking at his enclave. We are talking about the East African Federation. Do they know the advantages of us coming together? Because we want a market. Today my problems, we are going to talk about the young people. The problems of the young people are entirely, even if we are producing, we used to have no products here. Today we are beginning to have surplus. The surplus, you remember what's happening? Kenya tomorrow locks products of Uganda. Is that the ideology of Africa today? Tomorrow Rwanda is closing the borders of Uganda. Is that what we need? So for me, I want first to put this on record. The statements made by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, as far as Africa is concerned, is one we must appreciate, irrespective of our political divide. Because the challenges of unemployment today do not know whether you're in government or you're not in government. They do not know whether you are skilled or not skilled. But how do we create opportunities for ourselves to market our products, to help our people get jobs? So for me, as far as the question of this presidential speech is concerned, the other one was the issue of democracy.
Before you go to the issue of democracy, isn't it laughable that you are advocating for Pan-Africanism and yet the economy is collapsing on multinational capital? Just look at the biggest taxpayers here in the country.
Yes.
All multinationals, from telecommunications to industry to what, all of them.
But if I may answer you correctly, that is what you're asking actually entirely talks about the question of Pan-Africanism. Which are the multinational companies I'm talking about? I want to talk about in my sector. MTN is a South African company. That's African. Airtel is an Indian company. Those are people from the Far East. Which other company is foreign?
But that's the thing.
So
that's
what I'm telling you. The question is, if you talk about multinational companies, MTN is African, Airtel is European.
So do you feel proud that you are running an economy that is entirely surviving on multinational capital?
No, it's not entirely surviving on multinational capital. Why am I saying this? First of all, let me be honest to tell you this. Those telecommunication companies pay taxes. And remember also, they are the biggest taxpayers. Remember, my sector of ICT is actually contributing 9.8% to the GDP. So the question of, are we giving them everything free? Number two, we are reviving Uganda Telecom. For your own information. Actually, we are calling it Uganda Telecommunication Limited. It's a government-owned company. So why have we come up with this? Entirely we are trying to say, how do I address the question of monies, what we call, how do you call this, the direct word, is the question of the word called the capital flights. Why are we doing that? We're entirely saying, as a government, we must invest in the telecommunication company. But nevertheless, I was trying to address myself on the core principles of NRM, which the president emphasizes in missing. The question of democracy. There is always a joke from the West. One think that the best democracy comes from West. And this is what we have been following. He did remind us, and I'm happy Lopez here, I am a product of the NRM democracy, which it reminded the country that while other people sit in the air-conditioned rooms, the democracy of Uganda today was all looked at when they were in the jungles of Luero. Today, we have 96,860 offices contested. Actually, I think Uganda is the most democratic nation in the world. That's why if you see, even the LOC1 chairman must be voted, in my own opinion.
If we are measuring democracy in terms of how many elective positions we have, then I think Uganda would be the most democratic. But in terms of looking into rule of law, respect for human rights, even the elections themselves and how they were conducted, he was part of that, he was part of the process, you are part of the process, you know what...
I can address myself on the question of respect for human rights. First of all, I want to state it categorically clear. The constitution you're talking about was promulgated and formed by the NRM government. The issues you're raising of human rights are issues we are working on and which we have worked on.
For how long?
So I want to tell you this. So for that purpose, if there are mistakes which were correct, which were picked, and which are there, no, we are within the constitution. Those who are found culpable are always punished. So it's not automatic that there's a total abuse, there's total collapse of institutions in Uganda in the target, we are in the right path, and we are managing it. However, you are telling me that we shouldn't measure democracy by we are only measuring democracy by the... They should be personally held responsible. As far as their thinking that time, and of now, in our opinion, we are moving in the right direction. While there is also still a challenge within our own people to understand, as NRM, as government, we are doing extremely well. The other one, of course, which I want we face, which we must begin to teach the rest of the people who are watching us and who are below us, is always constant. I want. The question is, sometimes we come into contest when you are in central Uganda. It's a fact. So, but if you say that we could rig, then we would have even used the machinery of rigging even here to declare our own people winners. But for purposes of the record, we agree that, no, please, we cannot continue saying Museveni rigged, Museveni rigged. Let's be honest that Museveni prepares for election. And what brings that? There's a manifesto which we send to the people of Uganda. And that's what we normally talk about it. Every day I am here today, there are various people in the rest of the country talking for the programs of NRM, which Joseph and others do not have. So I want to say this. Museveni has always won an election and he prepares for it. That's why in Parliament today, I can say I have 337 members of Parliament in my party of NRM, which Museveni is leading. Opposition, you know how many they are all. I'm happy the law is here. All added is coming to maybe about 140, including independents, according to what is meant to be opposition in the House. So as far as presidential elections are concerned, Museveni normally wins those elections. The last one, of course, is on the question of being a puppet. I can't address myself to our foreign interest. And specifically in Africa, here, our foreign interest is always to have a secure, brotherly continent. And that's why you can see we can be in Somalia to look at what is the interest of Africa and what is the interest as a country. Me, who comes from the northeast, the biggest challenge in the northeast was the inflow of guns from Somalia, from a lawless state, which the cattle rustlers were getting. Some of us were born in IDP camps. So Museveni, beginning to diagnose the problem, this is a problem. South Sudan, they fought as Africans because what was happening in the greater Sudan? Ideological differentiation of tribalism, religion. This is the chauvinism Museveni is talking about at that end. And that's what also was causing a problem in Somalia today. Talk about our neighbors in the south. We help. Talk about Burundi, you're talking about, even at one point, if I'm correct, we're in Liberia on peacekeeping. We have supported ANC here. Museveni hosted the ANC soldiers here in Uganda. When countries feared to help South Africans during that bad time, said, no, come here, when you are just taking over government. So our foreign interest is entirely African. Our foreign interest is entirely to look at how do we help our brothers to work together. Because we are looking at the question of market for our goods and products, which in my opinion are able to help our young people grow the economy. I thank you.
And as the show goes on, we'll also address the fact that the Ugandan soldiers, UPDF Army, is going to be deployed in the DRC. You will tell us what you know so far as the Ugandan cabinet, but also looking at Africa's interests vis-a-vis Uganda's interests. Why are we always the ones deploying armies outside there, and yet we much need it here in the country?
Maybe Canada, before I get out, was a question of Muammar Gaddafi. You know, I was privileged to be in Libya at a time as a young leader. I think I was maybe about 19 or 20. And by that time, I think Madam Her Excellency, Special Wandera Kazibwe, who were invited, she's the one who led the delegation, and I was happy. I happened to be in Tripoli. I was in Benghazi. I was Ben Walid, and the city where the late Muammar Gaddafi. First of all, that country was a great country. And with due respect, I have also been to Libya after Muammar Gaddafi had left power. My friends, that's when you can now know the cost at which the Libyan people are suffering. And that's what I want to remind us. In this book here, President Museveni has a fundamental question, which we shouldn't water down. Why are we having insecurity in the currently Chad, Nigeria, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Central African Republic? Why? What brought that lawlessness is what happened in Libya. By that time, was there any challenge in that North Africa? Was there? So we must be realistic that the insecurity which has cropped up in Cameroon, Nigeria, Central African Republic, Chad, is entirely a result of what, particularly the so-called aggressors did in Libya. With due respect, was it correct for them to bomb Libya against the African Union resolution? This is my area where I want us to really, as young leaders, particularly as the young leaders who claim to be young leaders, we must begin to look at Africa now and tomorrow, vis-a-vis the Western interests on Africa. And we must be realistic about this. This is the Africa we want tomorrow. Because you will come to power tomorrow, Joseph. What will you do for us? How will you protect us? These are a problem today. We need a united Africa to begin to have one voice to manage the West, or else we are going to be in trouble. I thank you.
In this global world. Let me bring in here the leader of the opposition, outgoing Becha Olo-chan. What were your highlights of the speech on Wednesday?
Thank you, but let me first start by holding this constitution, how it was violated by President Museveni. 2005, when term limit was removed, it was his own making and his own interest, probably with a very few people around him. Percentage may not even go beyond 10%, but using corrupt tendency, and yet in 1986, when he came to power, he said the problem of Africa is leaders staying too long in power. Today he is 35 years old in power. And I hear my honorable here talks about this being the best speech since 1986. That means that for 35 years, he was wasting Ugandans' time. So this is number one. Number two, even it is not right to call this Western world idiot. Because first we are a creation of Western world. We call ourselves Uganda, and we are Ugandans. Uganda was a creation of colonialism. Colonialists. Even when I speak English here, this is not our culture. It is colonialism. Yes, we want to be sovereign, we want to promote our culture, but we should not forget where we have come from. Number two, even this constitution was still violated by President Museveni, removing the age limit. That age limit could have been put there during the time that Obote was still alive, to completely put him off. But it was caught up by him, sticking too much into power. This is a problem to Uganda, and a problem to a young country like this. That is why you see the youth going in almost opposite direction. So if we begin to talk about constitution and also the rule of laws, this is no more in Uganda. Yes, I went through, but not very easy. It has never been easy for some of us to go through. So the ground is never level. The electoral commission is can I say, a tool for President Museveni to always win the election. And when we have laws, we had POMA, Public Order Management Act, which was a big disservice on us. It was a challenge for us, the opposition. Immediately, we worked very much to say POMA should reduce. They should respect people. Then SOP came in, this standard operation procedure, which is used segregatively. This is a problem to us. So first, democracy is a question mark, a very big question mark. And the youth, I am happy that the youth are now seeing. And mind you, the population of Uganda, I believe that over 75% of the population of Uganda is under 35. And we can say that the youth is a very big population, and we need to plan for them better. And we don't have to create a lot of problems with even the Western world. We have to also be, I think they relate diplomatically. The language the president used was not diplomatic. attacking the Western world there and then directly. And the deployment is to show his might. This might is not what can bring us peace. What can bring us peace is to build the people, the human resource that the president has ever since forgotten about it. If president cared so much about Ugandans, by now, education for maybe primary and secondary in all public institutions would be free. Not UPE, but free. And it should be quality everywhere in Uganda. Not just quality for the rich. But you go to education, you will cry. And yet this is the very people who grow up to be the youth. I did a bit of development. I am a teacher by profession, but I also work in the NGO world. I became a social worker. I did rural development. And in development, we always say, the young people have energy. They have energy. And this energy must be put into the rightful use. So Uganda has a very big potential of even developing very well. That is if we plan better for our young people. But have we planned better for them? A creation of even these people they call the ghetto. I think it is a creation of this regime. Yes, sometimes we have children who grow because they are orphans. They do not have people to nurture them, to let them, grow up well. But later on, the environment they live in should help. And when I talk about the environment, that's why I talk about even education. Education is very important. And the quality of our population is how we can judge the development of a country. Even if you have the best roads, without developing the human resource, we are wasting time. We are sitting on time bomb. But unfortunately, the time bomb may not be for the people who are creating it now. It may be for the people in the future. So let us think about it. Think about the people of Uganda. I remember in this very the parliament we concluded on the 11th. We wanted some small budget to add to this loans for higher education, education loan,
Students'
loan, this student loan scheme. We wanted 5 billion. President Museveni was in Arua. We were the first to start asking to at least add something for the young people, students' loan. Do you know that this student loan, we never realized it up to date? But President Museveni asked for 17 billion to be added onto him very quickly, supplementary, to let him round up the country. And he was already, in campaign. And everywhere he went, even in Gulu when he went, he was in Unyama. Very few young people, few. You see, the few young people are the exploited young people. They stood up with their flag. Sole candidature. Sole candidature. Is that what we want for the people of Uganda? For the young people? In short, I want to say that at least I couldn't be there because every time I look at Uganda, I cry for Uganda. I see that priority is always pushed behind. Yes, Honorable talked about patriotism. We have Chankwanje. Chankwanje, in 2006, I made a proposal that institution should not have that image of, is it an institution for NRM orientation where they go to do their ideologistic orientation. It should indoctrination. But it should be an institution which should be planned better, programmed better. It could be of great use to our young population.
You also want to go there to Chakwanza and
of course, if it is properly planned, if it doesn't have the image of today, if it is properly planned, it should be for Ugandans. It should be for our young people. It should be where they can also, we try to help them in voluntarism, and they start to build their CV from there. That when you are out of school, you do not come out of school that you have completely nothing. At least something already in your CV that I attended this. Some of us build this culture of voluntarism early in secondary school. I remember in Sacred Heart, I was a girl guide. I was a young Christian student. And as a girl guide, we loved to go out to help people. Even when young as we were, we would try, there were poor people around that mission. We would try to go and even cut grass, to go and try to put on the roofs, on the, this grass thatched roof, to fix so that these poor people would not have their roof leaking in case of rain. That is voluntarism. We would go and inculcate it there in an institution like that, but not NRM. That one right now, the image, you go there, straight away we know that that one is gone. It's NRM. That one has already been indoctrinated. So democracy that we talk of, democracy and good governance, and then when we talk about patriotism, and when we talk about socio-economic and even political development, I think we are not yet there. They talk about skilling the youth. How do you skill the youth without proper, clear program and structure to follow? Okay. And when we talk about this Emioga coming to help the youth, even Operation Wealth Creation, do we have any yardstick to measure whether Operation Wealth Creation has helped the people of Uganda? There are individuals who seems to be stronger than institutions. Why do we allow this? Institutions must work. We must build institutions. We must love our country. We must love our people. We must make sure that human resource is put a priority in the country. Okay, when we have healthy, wealthy, educated people, we are a rich country. We wouldn't even be crying. Africa as a whole is a young Africa is a young continent. We all need to plan better. What President Museveni tried to deploy was to show his might and to let all other heads, those head of states who came, to know that he is now the next after what? After Gaddafi. That was why he brought in that element of Gaddafi. I don't think that he brought it up in good faith.
Okay, hold
on. It wasn't in good faith.
Let me bring in Joseph Kabuleta here, but I will talk about the different models that have been brought up to fight poverty in Uganda.
But maybe Canary, before...
We'll get to that in just a bit. I just want to play this video from one of the religious leaders in the country, and we address ourselves to it. As you know, the Eid celebrations were going on. It was a moment to make sure that some of the messages are passed on. Let's listen in.
2021, your year. Oh, yeah. Let's turn it all the way up. 106.1 Next Radio. Keeping it real and keeping it fresh. It's a vibe.
A typical mobile banking ad would tell you that you can access your money anytime or anywhere, like at the beach, at the club, in a taxi, on the back of a boda. But at a time like this, we would like to say no, don't go to the beach, to the club or the pub, and only leave the house if you really, really have to. Stay at home and stay safe. If you need access to your money, transact through your NCBA mobile banking app. NCBA Bank, the bank that says go for it, says go for it. At home, NCBA Bank is regulated by the Bank of Uganda, and customer deposits are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund.
Satisfy those cravings and order all your favorite meals from one app. We deliver in minutes. Download the Jumia Food app now. Experience 100% 4G speeds across Uganda with the Airtel 4G Pocket Wi-Fi available at 123,000 shillings only. It comes with 15 GB free for 1 month. Visit the nearest Airtel shop, device selling shop or Airtel online shop. www.airtel.co.ug/broadband-discover. Airtel, the smartphone network.
And in very dull news, a Dell spokesperson gave a Dell speech about a very Dell issue to a very bored audience. Oh, excuse me, I just need to take a sip of this Fanta over here. And this just in. I think I just drank sunshine. Ooh, my mouth is sparkling. These tiny orange bubbles are popping and knocking all over the place. Oh, back to the news. Now for the weather. How does the rain tie its shoes? With a rainbow.
Fanta, color every moment.
We call upon His Excellency the President.
2021, your year.
Oh, yeah!
Let's turn it all the way up. 106.1 Next Radio.
Keeping it real and keeping it fresh.
It's a vibe.
This is the young and free. The rule makers, shakers, breakers, and remakers. We wave the flag of the fearless. Our dreams bowing to our will. Life marching to the beat of our drum. Some think they can stop us. Others think they can tame us. But the only thing they can do is join us. Welcome to Pulse Nation. Download the Pulse app now.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
When life becomes uninteresting, that's the moment to bring on the fun. And nothing beats opening a delicious Fanta and bringing enjoyment. That is it. The taste of Fanta turns every moment into fun. Therefore, drink some and turn the traffic jam into a party. Let your journey to a retail store be one of celebration and the afternoon boredom turned into a dance fest. What can I say? Fanta is exceptional. Make any time entertaining. MTN has cut and reduced mobile money withdrawal rates starting 1st May 2021. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates in Uganda everywhere you go. Visit any MTN Momo agent countrywide and withdraw that money you're expecting at reduced rates. Everywhere you go, MTN. Terms and conditions apply. Be aware of conmen. Only accept calls from MTN on 0312 120 000. MTN Uganda is regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
2021, your year.
Oh, yeah!
Let's turn it all the way up. 106.1 Next Radio.
Keeping it real and keeping it fresh.
It's a vibe.
A typical mobile banking ad would tell you that you can access your money anytime or anywhere, like at the beach, at the club, in a taxi, on the back of a boda. But at a time like this, we would like to say no, don't go to the beach, to the club or the pub, and only leave the house if you really have to. Stay at home and stay safe. If you need access to your money, transact through your NCBA mobile banking app. NCBA Bank, the bank that says go for it, says go for it. At home, NCBA Bank is regulated by the Bank of Uganda and customer deposits are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund.
Satisfy those cravings and order all your favorite meals from one app. We deliver in minutes. Download the Jumia Food app now. Experience 100% 4G speeds across Uganda with the Airtel 4G Pocket Wi-Fi available at 123,000 shillings only. It comes with 15 GB free for 1 month. Visit the nearest Airtel shop, device selling shop or Airtel online shop. www.airtel.co.ug/broadband-discover. Airtel, the smartphone network.
And in very dull news, a Dell spokesperson gave a Dell speech about a very Dell issue to a very bored audience. Oh, excuse me, I just need to take a sip of this Fanta over here.
And this just in. I think I just drank sunshine. Ooh, my mouth is sparkling. These tiny orange bubbles are popping and knocking all over the place. Oh, back to the news. Now for the weather. How does the rain tie its shoes? With a rainbow.
Fanta, color every moment.
The Rude Awakening with Karen Toss and Redende. Get up and stay woke. The Zoo on 106.1 Next Radio. It's a vibe. Feel the vibe on Next Radio. 106.1. Feel the vibe.
One 106.1 Next Radio. My name is Kanar Mugume, and this is the Big Talk. In studios today, I have the State Minister for ICT, Honorable Peter Ogwang, the outgoing leader of opposition, Betty Awolo-Chan, and former presidential candidate, Joseph Kabuleta. Let's first listen in from a message from one of the religious leaders. Just listen in.
We call upon His Excellency the President to pardon all those who have been in confinement due to this political situation which has been in the country, that let them be released. Let them enjoy the freedom with their families. Some of them are Muslims, they want to enjoy Eid al-Fitr with their families. So we plead to His Excellency the President to pardon these people.
For those who were caught somewhere where we were not, so let them be forgiven by you, to show off, because the powers of forgiveness and punishment is yours in one hand. So use the right hand to write on the paper, big paper, with the names, very big numbers of names, that for those who have been so grabbed for A, B, C, D, without any question, they are forgiven.
Anyway, so as there were celebrations of Eid, the religious leaders used that opportunity to pass on the message that still scars from the political campaigns and elections that have never healed up to date. President Yoweri Museveni in his speech said, elections are done, we should move on. But can we just move on?
No, we can't. It's going to be very difficult. And he's the one actually. And that's sad. But anyway. Let me help delve in some of the discussions which have been here. And let me help people understand how this government... Okay, I will not even put it that way because it's not a government. Let me help you understand how Museveni thinks. Now, while the rest of us look at Ugandans in terms of age brackets, they are the elderly, they are the middle, like myself, then they are the youth, who are very disenfranchised. Actually, much of the disenfranchised group are the youth who have only seen one president all their lives. Now, that's how the rest of us see Uganda. But let me tell you how Museveni sees Uganda. And I'm going to help you explain some things so that you understand all this. In the three categories he sees the category of the entitled, he sees the middle class, and he sees the peasantry. Now, each of those categories in his plan has a purpose. Now, the peasantry, which he has deliberately kept at about between 68 or 65 to 70%, are supposed to be there to keep him in power. They are the ones who are very, gullible. They are the ones who will give a vote in exchange for a hoe or for a sewing machine and so on. And as long as there are that many peasants, it is going to be very difficult for any grouping to come up and unseat the president the way it has been in so many other people. Because those people, they may be disenfranchised as well or disgruntled, but they are so easily appeasable. Something small is going to appease them, and he knows it, and he will keep them in that place where they can very easily be appeased. And now they are the ones that keep him in power. That's why it's okay for him that they are not involved in the income tax bracket whatsoever. We are the only country which has such a big population of people who do not contribute to the income tax whatsoever. Now, the purpose of the middle class is, the middle class are the beasts of burden. They are the ones who contribute in the taxes. They are the ones who contribute, in a lot of they keep the economy running. They make it look like a serious economy. They are the ones, of course, who are going to be continually taxed, and the taxes are going to increase and increase. And now that middle class, every safe haven they seem to find for themselves, they will go and invade them there and impose heavy taxes on it. You see it on the internet, you saw it on rental income. And which tax starts at 25% or even 20%. I mean, when you're starting a tax in a new area, you start a bit lower. You don't start at a quarter of somebody's income. Now, why? Because they've let you go run there and say, how are we going to secure our own future? I build houses, I'm getting income through rent, I'm doing this. Then they will come and collect them. Now, you see that all the taxes on all the things, it's targeting the same middle class people. They are the ones who are in NSSF. They're the ones who can't access, a fraction of their money, in spite of the fact that Parliament said that they should. And so they are the beasts of burden, so to speak. But their work is also to collect money for the top class. Now, let me explain this to you, how he thinks. And he's not the only one who has done this. This is how it works for people like him. The first generation use political power to get wealth, to amass wealth. The next generation use wealth to get political power. That's what happened in Kenya. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, used political power to get so much land, so much wealth, and, take possession of so many things. Now his son used the wealth to get political power. That's how you entrench yourself in a system. That's why even in democracies like America, you find, dynasties where George Bush was vice president, then he was president, then his son is president 8 years, then another son of his is standing. Okay, he didn't go through, but he was beaten by Donald Trump, but he's so angry because he felt that was their natural right to take control of the Republican Party, because they have created some kind of dynasty. How? The original people got the wealth and amassed the wealth. Now they pass it on. Now when you look at the voting patterns, for instance, in Kenya, in Uhuru's first term, I looked and I saw that there was a lot of money used. In places like Turkana, where he just goes, gets the elders, gives the money, and they vote for him en masse. And now he has used, whereas his father used army, his father used tyranny, his father used land grabbing, very, very much land grabbing. Those are the wounds that the sores that kind of came out in 2007 when Kikuyus were being killed this side of Nakuru and so on. Because there was a lot of land grabbing and so on. Now, after that, he passes it on to the next generation. And now they don't need to use force. Now even this UPDF which they are using, in the calculation of Museveni, his generation uses political power to amass wealth. That's why they are getting lands in all parts of the country. Now, in his calculation, then his next generation, after that has been kind of forgotten, because nobody now associates Uhuru's wealth with land grabbing and what. No, because somebody else did it for him, his father. Now, he calculates that after that, his next generation will come and you vote for them because they are the ones who have the money. So they are the ones who have all the oil deals, they are the ones who have all the mineral deals, they are the ones who have every single deal that the country has. Eventually, they are the ones who own all the houses where you are renting. They are the ones who are employing you. They're also your employers, they are your bosses, they are everything. So when they come and ask you for political power, you give them because they have the money. And money determines politics. And you know that even in democracies, even in big democracies, for instance, in America, they will tell you how much money this candidate is amassing through, how much money they are collecting, and that determines how much, how much more likely they are to win, the presidency. So now that's what he's thinking. Now, you just know which category you fall in. Peasantry, middle class, beasts of burden, or in the royal family. That's the three categories he sees. Now, as far as he's concerned, by the end of these 5 years, he will have entrenched that system. So that now the middle class have no choice but to actually, in a democratic situation, vote for the people who have money, who will be people of his family. That is the whole game plan. And it is not him who has done it alone. I've given you one example of who. There are so many others. Now, for that to happen, he has to keep middle class middle. When you start having delusions of going up there, then they will come at you with URA. They will come at you with all sorts of things because you're supposed to stay there. Now, when the peasants also try to break into the middle class, they also have some kind of barrier. That no, you're supposed, because when I was talking in the campaigns about how we can use agriculture to bring so many people out of peasantry into middle class, when you look at Kasaija's budget, so many of the things that I was talking about, he actually goes and copies the rhetoric, but the spirit is the same. So the spirit of keeping people where they are is the same, but you pick the rhetoric. We want to expand the tax base. They are not going to expand it. It's actually thinning. After COVID, even the middle class thinned further. Okay, because so many of the so-called middle class fell into the peasantry. Now, it is thing now. They will use the same rhetoric that I was using, but the difference between them and myself is that actually I had the spirit of bringing people out of poverty. The will, and that was the major thing. Now, for them, they do not have the will, they have the words. Now, whereas other leaders will use speeches to tell people what they are planning, and you can look into their soul by listening to their speeches. Museveni is so different. He uses speeches to give people something to talk about, to determine the narratives in television and so on and radio, while he goes ahead to do what he has always been doing, which is what I have explained there. So what do you expect the next 5 years? Take it from me, Joseph Kabuleta, it's going to be much of the same. The royal family are going to get more royal. They are now amassing, they own, where the oil pipe is passing, they've bought all the lands there. They're the ones who would be compensated. Now they have gone to places in northern Uganda where they have discovered a lot of minerals. Now they are amassing land there. It's all about land. In places like Bunyoro, the oil fields, it's all about land. They have amassed a lot of land there. In eastern Uganda, where they've also found a lot of minerals, guess who are there? So it is the same system. We are going to see it for 5 years. Nothing is going to change. And now he sees this as the term in which all his game plan from way back is going to be actualized. You remember that the one thing that stood in the way of Kenyatta is that he was so old. He was in his 80s, and Uhuru was so young, whom he had chosen as the successor. But then he got a middle person there and said, okay, you are my man. Yeah, but somehow. So by the time Mo is through his 23 years, Uhuru has matured and has the ability to go and get PR machinery to build him. Because they had to build a lot about him. Because people who grew up with him know what kind of person he is and so on. So they had to build him. So even when he went to ICC, and all the witnesses against him crumbled. I remember one of the justices saying that there is no justice for the rich. Because he just brought the people who were supposed to witness against him, and the case crumbled. And that's what money does. And now when you secure, so when somebody says he's securing his future, you know, okay, your future, you know whose future is securing. And that's the honest truth, and now you know it.
Let's throw it to the minister here, but
maybe just for information. In, is it 2001, in the campaign, President Museveni kept on saying, give me this last term, give me this last term. Then later on, when he was asked whether he was a servant leader or a revolutionary leader, he said he's a servant of nobody. He's a servant of his children and his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Those are the people he works for. So people should forget he is not a servant leader. He doesn't care the poverty of those people in Acholi sub-region or in Teso sub-region or in Lango sub-region. He doesn't care about those poverty. He cares about, resources coming to him and the family. And tomorrow, they keep on using those resources to buy off people. That is the reason why even cooperatives was completely buried. And now they're trying to rejuvenate it.
No, they will not.
It is so difficult to bring it. It was buried because, an empowered population is a difficult population.
Ms. Canary, I think I need really to do much work here.
Absolutely. And talking about promises.
And particularly, you might have to give me more time.
Honorable, talking about promises, I want you also to answer this as you respond to the comments.
I think this is a fundamental change in the politics of our country.
The NRM has been in power for the last 30 years and has brought Uganda from the abyss of insecurity and despair to now the threshold of becoming a middle-income country by 2020.
When 2021, Uganda is not even close to attaining $1,000 per capita for each individual here in the country. So, Honorable Minister, when they talk about pledges that have actually failed, you now understand the context. It's been pledges over pledges over pledges, but they don't see the change.
Not to talk, and I'm happy that you need to give me time because I'm here as a single person debating with two brains. For but that matter, that I have to continue clearing most of the toxic information they are giving to the public and to the viewers out there. To begin with, particularly, I want first to try to move very fast so that I can concentrate on the question you've asked me. Number one, the question of overstaying in power by President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And I really want to remind the leader of opposition. And the same constitution you're carrying here. I've always said this again and again, and I want to repeat it for the record. Article 259 of the Constitution gives provisions as to which this Constitution can be amended. This Constitution is not cast that it is permanent and pensionable, it cannot be amended. Any article in this Constitution can be amended. So my senior sister here, as a leader of opposition, we need to begin telling the Ugandans the truth that any of the provisions in this constitution can be amended. So Museveni's overstaying in power, like the way you're saying, it was the wish of those members of parliament and the Ugandans who believe Museveni was needed and is still relevant to be in power. And I want to read it verbatim, because sometimes I have heard you gossiping.
You are wasting time.
But I am lying. Number one.
You're wasting time.
In her own words, she said it was violated.
No, that's what I want to say.
I said,
who said that it cannot be amended? Because the question is, he has overstayed in power, he violated the constitution, but the framers of the same constitution put that article there. So was it a violation for it not to be amended?
Corrupt.
No, it was entirely within the context of the law. So that's point number one. Number two, which again I want to put here, that the president used very harsh words on his statements to the diplomats and the Western world. It's not true. The president did explain, and it's a record, which he made it clear. And for him, he's looking at issues of where we came from, where we are today, and where we are meant to be. So his words were open that, please, we, in 1900, according to him, it was only Ethiopia which had not been colonized. But the same problems which were happening in 1900 are beginning to happen again. That's why we were saying, we need friends who come and consult us, but not to come and dictate on what they want to do. So please, if you're my friend, have respect for me and listen to what I say and consult. The other issue, of course...
Honorable, these were the words.
Quite comic and laughable to hear of some actors in the world giving us lectures about democracy. You give me a lecture about democracy? What are your own credentials when it comes to dangerous strategic African issues? We have no interest in fighting anybody except poverty and underdevelopment in Africa, starting with Uganda. However, some actors are always in sight of enemies. They are looking for enemies. You are not an enemy, they declare you an enemy. Okay, if you want to be an enemy, we can sort out issues. On account of that, much of Northwest Africa has been with security problems that were not there before. Libya, Chad, Mali, Niger, parts of Nigeria, Central African Republic, and Cameroon. Who is responsible for this hemorrhage? I hear people talking about accountability. Who is accountable for this suffering?
You may proceed.
So I don't want to repeat. There is no better word to explain that than the president himself. The other one, of course, which the leader of opposition trying to say here is the question of the students' loan scheme. Please, if you look at this year's budget, if you look at the NDP 3, human capital development takes the biggest share of the budget, which is entirely looks at education and health, followed by security. And I'm happy, look, you as a leader of opposition had the opportunity to respond and to have alternatives to this budget. The problem is we come and speak here. When you have the right forums, that's Joseph, sometimes you need to come to Parliament so that you help us get out some of the better alternatives for purpose of us moving forward as a country. So when you talk about students' loan scheme, first of all, the students' loan scheme, it is us who created it. I don't think it was part of the alternatives of the opposition in Parliament. I don't think so. Me and you came together. Maybe you came before me. Yes, I don't think so.
Can I give him information?
Please, can I first proceed? The other issue
I'll give you information on student loan scheme.
Okay, please.
You know, student loan scheme came about as a result of us complaining about the scholarship, State House scholarship. And we said no, and scholarship being given to young people haphazardly. So there was no criteria of getting this loan. So we said, please, let us then now have student loan scheme. So it was a suggestion or a proposal by some of us who would not access those loans in the State House.
So can I also give you this correct information? Because as far as I'm concerned, when I was a youth member of Parliament, for purpose of my time, I remember I flew with His Excellency the President to Nakapiripirit. Amudat, actually. When I was in Amudat with him, I did ask him a question. We have Pocoteses in Amudat. These children in Pocoteses, two things happen. They normally get maybe 2-3 principal points, but most times they don't qualify to get into government sponsorship. I posed the question, how do these students from the underprivileged areas be able to qualify to get university education? He did tell me two things. Number one, can we look at the quota system? Number two, the question of the students' loan scheme. And he challenged me and my colleagues, who are youth MPs, the Honorable Evelyn Anite, Karuhanga, and Amoding then, that please, can you young leaders look at the alternatives? What can we do? So the creation of the inception of the students' loan scheme, it is entirely one thing we discussed with him as young leaders. So I want to proceed and say, please, there's also been a total talk about bloated State House budget, which I want again was trying to raise here. Yes. Madam Law, Article 99 again of this Constitution talks about Office of the President. It is our constitutional duty to facilitate the Office of the President.
But at what cost?
And I'm coming to answer the question of the cost.
And the supplementary.
I'm coming to talk about that. Please. Now, if you think the country should not support the first office of the land, then what should it do? You're talking about the cost. Do you think Yoweri Kaguta Museveni uses that money for his personal gain? Do you think Yoweri Kaguta Museveni should go? I want to repeat the same ones I mentioned the other time on the front line. Do you think Yoweri Kaguta Museveni should go and sell his cows to facilitate the official duties of Office of the President as a head of state? Please, I know very well. The challenge and the difference between Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and the rest of the leaders is one who loves work. He has initiated too many projects for purposes of the country to move as far as...
First of all, just 1 minute.
Yes.
Actually, 5 seconds. There is a difference between the budget for Office of the President and budget for State House.
I know that very well.
Now, we are talking about State House budget, which is inflated, which is $500,000 every day.
Can I first
supplementary all the time?
Can I first correct you as far as budget is concerned? In the Constitution, the executive office, it's about Office of the President. Article 99, State House is under Office of the President. That's why you see there's Minister for President. It is true, under the code, Office of the President has its own code and a budget line. State House has. It is true. Office of the President looks at internal security, external security, RDCs, that's Office of the President. It is within Vote 001. Vote 002 is State House. That's what I'm coming to say. In State House, the activities the executive office does, are they not seen? Do you want those activities not to be funded?
No, we can question the activities.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
We can question the criteria of the donations. Why, for example, you have all donations inside State House?
But I'm coming to ask you that question.
Who decides what? Who decides how much goes to what donation and to whom?
Can I reply you that question? Those donations, do they go to Museveni or they go to the people of Uganda?
But that's the thing.
No, that's why I'm just asking you.
Selectively.
Yes. No, please. That is also not
segregatively.
That is also not true. And I want to correct the record on our wall. And let's be respectful of our opinion here. When we are submitting, we keep quiet. When it is your time, you respond. So I'm only saying, those donations, who do they go to? They go to the people of Uganda. So I want to proceed and say, then the other one, which of course I want to go back to the main issues, National Leadership Institute. For God's sake, leader of opposition. The National Leadership Institute, Chankwanz, is under office of the president. Please, you're free as a leader of opposition to write to the minister, take your members of opposition to the National Leadership Institute. You appropriate money by then in Parliament for the development of that National Institute. I want to remind you, we do appropriate. And for that matter, it's not a partisan activity. The NRM, as a political party, has its headquarters in Chadondo, Plot 10. The other one is a government facility. So please, let's take advantage of that. And by the way, let's remove the thinking that it is an institute which gives us to carry out ideological indoctrination of others. The last one which I want to talk about this is the yardstick to measure OWC. These are the challenges opposition in Uganda faces. And I really want to challenge you people. You're not doing Ugandans a noble cause. Actually, Joseph, there's a lot of space for you to occupy. Because how do you come on air and say, you can now see, we don't have any yardstick to measure how operational expression performs. When the roles of parliament are to carry out oversight, we are the ones who appropriate money to OWC. But this is a country, sometimes I say, however, OWC has done a lot. And if you give me time, I will address myself to the NRM manifesto on areas where OWC has done a commendable job as far as increasing agriculture productivity in the country. They did this other one, my brother. I want first to disagree with you from all fronts. Number one, UPDF is a national army which is not used to amass wealth. Let's have those records clear. UPDF has done a commendable job in securing our country, and that's the reason today, from one front to another, you don't have any problem as far as Uganda is concerned. That's why you see we're in Somalia, we're in South Sudan most times, we're in every part as for peace. Like you asked me a question, that is, whichever word you ask me, that UPDF is meant to go where?
In the DRC.
I am not aware, and I want to put it on record. That's not true. The law is very clear as far as the deployment of the army to the foreign country.
Can I ask one question? Just a question. The UPDF actually did go, members of the UPDF in Congo, and amassed personal wealth, and now as a result, Uganda is set to pay at first $10 billion to Congo, which increased, I think, in the 20s because of interest. And that is not what the gold and the timber they stole did not come to Ugandans. It went to individuals. But guess who is going to pay? Ugandans.
First of all, I want to say this. That's why I'm correcting the record, which you try to portray that the UPDF is used to amass wealth. That's why I said no.
But I just told you
I'm
how
trying to address that question. If there are individual mistakes which were committed by officers who entered into Congo, in my opinion, they should be held responsible.
Yes,
that is my opinion, and I'm speaking as a Ugandan.
Yes.
That is it, because at the end of the day, errors committed ought to be addressed by the people who committed it. The Constitution clearly states for a national army to be deployed, there must be a parliamentary approval. That's a fact, unless I'm wrong in that, but that's a fact. So for what you say, it's not true. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not aware.
So I have it on good record.
Yes.
The Ugandan army is going to be deployed in eastern Congo to flush out the rebels.
That's what I'm saying. As far as
Ugandan generals have gone for a visit in DRC to assess how many troops Uganda might need.
I want to speak as a minister still of information, that the information you're giving is not a position of government. I am not aware.
Thanks, His Excellency, the President.
And that's what I know as far as I'm concerned.
The
other one which I want to address, the other one which I want to address is on the question of
infrastructure projects which are taking place in Bunyoro are very exceptional. Within this time, in the next 3-4 years, before even we begin looking at oil, crude oil coming out of the soil, we are going to create about 5,000 jobs. We expect about 1.something trillion to be spent within the next 3-4 years, which will be able to help the country move from where it is now to a level, in my opinion, which is good. Number two, there are enabling laws now. You remember very well, I think the minister, when they were here during the spot-on program for government, they explained to the people, as far as the energy sector is concerned, where they ought to be and what they intend to do. So for me, the last one, which of course I want to address myself, is on the question of saying,
Uganda, and in the question of saying Museveni said that he's a servant leader, I think sometimes we tend to pick statements out of context, and I want to request us that those are very important questions. But the last one is on income, the question of income, the country attaining the middle income status. First of all, we must acknowledge that as we speak today, we are at about 920. But also, let's be realistic, Canary, that the country going through.
We're actually at 860.
No, as far as the source I'm concerned, in means of finance, is at 920. But let's also appreciate that the economy has been growing at about 6.2. But as of today, it went to about 2.9.
Because of COVID.
Because of COVID.
But Tanzania, Mozambique attained middle-income status even during COVID. In fact, for Tanzania, it attained the status 5 years ahead of time.
But why I'm saying that, our economies are not the same. Let's be realistic. So, Tanzania is not a landlocked country. There are challenges we face as a landlocked country vis-a-vis those who are in the coastal line. So for purpose of being at home here, COVID entirely affected our growth. Had COVID not been there, and I'm sure in this term we are in, beginning 12, we shall be able to attain middle income status. That one, I guarantee you on that.
Let's listen in from
Canary.
You know,
I am also burning up with just respond to the Honorable Minister. One thing the Honorable Minister must know, that this constitution is supposed to be for Ugandans and should not be used in a corrupt tendency. Let him go back to 2005 and find out how members of parliament of that time passed the removal of term limit. I was not in parliament, but we read and we know of members of parliament of the 7th parliament who failed because their names were there for receiving 5 million to remove the term limit. They were given 5 million each, and this was for interest of an individual. In 2018 November, I asked about reviewing this constitution, because we know there are some laws which are also not good. It has given president too much power. We want something, electoral reform. We don't want these laws being amended. Yes, there is provision for amendment of this constitution, but it should not be done for interest of one person. It should be for the interest of Ugandans. Even the age limit, truth be told, and it remains in record, if it was the interest of Ugandans, I don't think so that there could have been fighting in parliament. Why was there fighting in parliament? Why was there deployment in parliament? And people who went to 29 million was given to each member of parliament to go and consult and bring people's views. But MRM went and said, to hell with those people's views. What comes rain or sunshine, this must go through. And indeed it went through corrupt tendency. Let me say it out. If people do not know that taxpayers' money is being used for selfish interests, then I am now saying it. We have, when Honorable talk about vote of State House, yes, State House must be given vote. But must we always must we go in for supplementary all the time? For State House? Is this right? When we don't have resources for Uganda. Look at the ordinary people, how the ordinary people suffer. Let us talk about ordinary people. If your people, the people who send you to parliament are all right, mine are not all right. So these are the people we should talk about. We should not just get resources. We know when we say, MTN pays a lot of money. But yes, it pays tax. It pays. These taxes are paid by the consumers. Consumer is always the last person to pay, and pay even with the profit. So they are actually the people who should benefit a lot from even the taxes which are paid in Uganda.
Honorable, can I just take 10 seconds of your time to add on to what you're saying? First of all, I was in Tanzania. I met a lawyer who studied for Makerere, and he laughed at our constitution. He said it was amended 105 times in 1 year, 2005. 105 times. I haven't verified, but that's what he told me. He studied his law here around that time. And he said the Tanzanian constitution has not been amended more than 40 times since it was made.
But if
I'm taking a part of what
yes,
and then number two, also to add on to what she has just been saying, the issue of supplementary budget. 2 months into the financial year, 2 months before even the ink on the budget has dried, State House is already asking for supplementary. How do you ask for? It's like asking for supplement for an advance on your salary 2 days since your last payday.
I just would like to say, Operation Wealth Creation, is it under which ministry? Under Ministry of Agriculture? If it is under Ministry of Agriculture, how is it that then, when Gulu has to receive seedlings, the seedlings are brought from either western part of Uganda and they arrived in Gulu when they are already very vulnerable, broken down completely, and that is waste of taxpayers' money. Look at the cassava stock. When they take cassava stock, they take during dry season, and this cassava stock rich when it's so dry, and it is taxpayers' money. You look at the taxpayers' money and you cry tears when you see the ordinary person struggling. I am not talking about myself. I am in the category, the middle, who work a lot for those rich, 2 or 3% of the population of Uganda. I work for them. I want to work for the ordinary person. I want to see impact on the ordinary person. If Ogwang, Honorable, has his people laughing now, the deepest person in the grassroots there is okay, living above the poverty line, then he must be very lucky. The ministers have not helped us a lot. But the Ugandans are watching. This young population, you cannot deceive people forever. Operation Wealth Creation, we have said no, and we have always put it. And for me, I even went before budget committee, I told them, please, for us, our proposal is this, our proposal is this. I want to tell you that the chairman, budget committee, is a very understanding leader. The chairman adopted our proposal because we say now, give agriculture time and give it enough resources. Let there be extension, agricultural extension workers. Let there be inputs for people. Empower our people through cooperatives. I want to tell you that our proposal in the budget framework 2019 was adapted very much. So we are not there wasting time. We are all together, but we know because politics is a game of number. If they come up with their crafty things, in most cases, those crafty things go through. But they should be mindful of the people, the ordinary person, the ordinary Ugandan.
You've had an opportunity to have an office with resources to do mobilization as the leader of opposition. Which one?
We did a lot of mobilization when we moved out to do our oversight role. Let me tell you, in land, when we went to APA to check on our people and also to really talk to them, I'm telling you, do we have guns? Opposition do not have guns. We don't have police. We were completely blocked, and I want to tell you, blocked, and we were many people in the bus, and I had 2 vehicles. I carried also some MPs in my vehicle. Completely blocked, and we were told, go to Ajumani and get permission. To get visa from Ajumani, is that what governance, democracy and good governance is? Or it is
allow me first make some
dictatorial regime? And we went again to that very time, we went again, and Honorable Onek Hillary wrote a long letter. How we were going as members of parliament, as opposition. That all Betty Ochan, member of parliament for Gulu, has no no business in Lamour. She has no business in Lamour. They tried to deploy police. We were able to, move. But he demobilized people there.
Okay.
When we
Give him a minute to
we met the chief there. They came and disorganized us completely with drunkard youth. Came and disorganized us. I just said I was doing that from the bottom of my heart. There are certain things that when somebody who is old enough is able to see, maybe a young person is not able to see.
So
probably there are certain things that I am able to see that this son of mine, this honorable minister, is not able to see.
She's alluding to the misuse of power.
This is a problem which we face when we come to these studios. And sometimes it's for the record that...
But you talked a lot.
We need to be fair that when we invite us here, first of all, I came here for a purpose of discussion. The topic of discussion is not what I'm discussing. Number two, my sister, who is the leader of opposition, who, with due respect, is meant to account to the people and the members of the opposition and to give alternative policies.
Yes, we have given. We have always given.
Is not helping the country in terms of the alternatives. Instead, she's on politicking and rhetorics. For you to say this government has not done much, I want to quote her on sub-region of actually sub-region. Do you know how much investment government has invested in infrastructure in actual sub-region? She's here. Gulu. Is Gulu the same? From 1986 to date, where she's representing? As far as investment in the infrastructure, talk about rural electrification. Almost all sub-counties in the greater northern region have power. Talk about tarmac roads. Almost all the greater roads in the northern region have what? Have a tarmac road. That's the reason she must tell the country, why did NRM perform better in the north than the rest of the country? Because she's here. The other one is, there are programs in the sector of, like you talk about OWC. Please, business, government gave powers to the private sector to compete and do business with the government. I want to say this. While you have one or two issues, which I appreciate, on the issue of saying, some of these seedlings come when they are drying. That's a negative, which I also want to say, I have witnessed them. But what have you done? Because for me, in my area, where they have come, I have asked the responsible leadership to make good of that. Do you need to come and begin thinking that because you're opposing, you shouldn't do that? Do you need to begin tribalizing that they come from Western Uganda? I am not a party to that. And with due respect to you, Honorable Beta Award, you are a leader of opposition of Uganda, not a leader of opposition of Gulu. Let's begin to move outside Uganda. Let's be Ugandans. Let's be East Africans. Let's be Africans. This divisive politics is what it was in there in 1900. We're in 2021. We are still talking about this. Then there's a challenge where I am. If I'm in parliament and up to now I'm discussing politics of tribe, I am not a tribalist, nor am I a person who, I know I'm an Anglican, but at the moment it doesn't help me.
Can I clarify? I just want to clarify that if I use the West, it doesn't mean that I was using the West. I use the West, but it could have come from the East, or it could have come from what?
I want to say
but I wanted
all
areas.
It is your failure as you as a member of parliament of that area, I don't think you would have made, because you have a lot you have not done for your area. Today you're here sitting. Me, I was born in a camp. You know, the North-East, we had the challenge of cattle rationing. Is it existing today? No, SAF doing projects. Isn't it happening in a good So we must bring us on content. For instance, now we have of it, that's 22 trillion is collected into domestic financing within our own tax monies. So the question is, what is in
to explain to
that is what but she's here.
Context.
At least I can excuse my colleague there. But she's here.
Yes,
she's the leader of opposition.
Yes.
Does she know to align the NDP3 to the national budget? These are the fundamentals we must explain to the people. What alternatives is she giving to the people of Uganda as opposition?
When he talked about rural electrification in northern part of Uganda, that's why I say for the minister, even in Karam, Moja, I still found a lot of issues turn up. To say if we talk about it, we don't have generators,
okay,
but the ordinary person wants to see that saloon there in Gulu, wants to be able to receive power. And we have been taught, honorable, that the ordinary but the ordinary person wants to see that saloon there in Gulu, wants to be able to receive power. And we have been taught, honorable, that the ordinary
1,880 megawatts. We have in DC Simba coming on board, which is going to generate 183 megawatts. So when you talk about power, you see, that's why sometimes we are not doing our noble duty to the people of Uganda.
Let me inform you power generated by Uganda. But even if you generate excess and nothing reaches Gulu, do we still what? Do we still
Let's take a short commercial break, but when we return, we'll look at the challenges of the year on NBS television.
Oh yeah, official is my friend. No, free OTT. Now I got social distance. Call you all day.
Take calls and free OTT. Translated by Ghana Communications Commission.
Hakuna Matata.
Your romance.
Yes.
Your drama.
I invited VIPs, not gossips.
Your heroes. It's your moment with your stories. Made at home for your home. 'Cause great stories start on DSTV.
The day the world stopped was the day we found where to go.
Where wealth belongs to a certain select few, very, very few. So few they can fit in one room. And the rest of Ugandans are just supposed to, to survive and not to thrive. So that's what we are trying to break. We are trying to break the suppression, the oppression that is financial, and liberating people financially to go and thrive, to go and be a partakers of the natural resources that are theirs by right, and not to be observers even as the national cake is being distributed, or not to see figures of growth apparently attributed to our country flying out of budget speeches and so on, without it having any impact on their wallets. Now that is what we want to change. We want any growth that this country enjoys, and we are going into a very good period in regard to growth. We want it to be a force to reckon with in the pockets of every Ugandan.
Joseph, you are talking about wealth distribution. Look, you are a man who can afford a very expensive suit, a very nice car, and a few other things. One might say that you belong to the small group of the people who hold wealth, as you put it. And is that a creation of the state or government that is serving you, or it was your own creation, and why do you want to change that?
Of course, it's not a creation of the government. If we had a more inclusive government, you wouldn't be able, you wouldn't even be reduced to describing wealth as a suit. How much does a suit cost? We're talking about real wealth, because we're talking about real wealth. So somebody having a car, driving a suit, or rather driving a car, having a suit and things like that, and you think that is wealth, that is how far this government has suppressed us, that we actually even consider a suit to be wealth. Now, we are talking about a very rich country, which is rich in all sorts of resources. And now, the corporate people, or people who, they're counting their wealth in the number of suits they have in the wardrobe. That is really sad. And actually, that's exactly what I have come to change, so that we get to a point where our wealth is real wealth, not virtual wealth. You can come out and look smart and look nice, and yet actually you are sitting on a whole load of problems at home, and but you just have to keep up appearances. Now we want to change that, where wealth belongs to a certain select few, very, very few. So few they can fit in one room, and the rest of Ugandans are just supposed to, to survive and not to thrive. So that's what we are trying to break. We are trying to break the suppression, the oppression that is financial, and liberating people financially to go and thrive, to go and be a partakers of the natural resources that are theirs by right, and not to be observers even as the national cake is being distributed, or not to see figures of growth apparently attributed to our country flying out of budget speeches and so on, without it having any impact on their wallets. Now that is what we want to change. We want any growth that this country enjoys, and we are going into a very good period in regard to growth. We want it to be a force to reckon with in the pockets of every Ugandan.
Joseph, you are talking about wealth distribution. Look, you are a man who can afford a very expensive suit, a very nice car, and a few other things. One might say that you belong to the small group of the people who hold wealth, as you put it. And is that a creation of the state or government that is serving you, or it was your own creation, and why do you want to change that?
Of course, it's not a creation of the government. If we had a more inclusive government, you wouldn't be able, you wouldn't even be reduced to describing wealth as a suit. How much does a suit cost? We're talking about real wealth, because we're talking about real wealth. So somebody having a car, driving a suit, or rather driving a car, having a suit, and things like that, and you think that is wealth, that is how far this government has suppressed us. That we actually even consider a suit to be wealth. Now, we are talking about a very rich country, which is rich in all sorts of resources. And now, the corporate people, or people who, they're counting their wealth in the number of suits they have in the wardrobe. That is really sad. And actually, that's exactly what I have come to change. So that we get to a point.
What was happening during the ad break. There's so much conversation going on here, but this is not an entire representation of the state of young people in Uganda. However, it is also a representation of some major group of young people here in Uganda. We just had a chat with some people in the ghetto, this week after the swearing-in ceremony of President Yoweri Museveni, and this is what they had to say. Just listen in on this young person.
bazimbe ng'obutale abaana babasomesa engeri y'okukolamu ssente ng'oli bajja muwa akakadde bamuwe n'omudaala bwe kiba tekisobose ebintu bwe bityo tojja kukwata bukwasa emitwalo 10 oba 20 ogiwa omwana nti genda otandika okukola oba ogiwa omuntu nti
there's been of course a few cash handouts given out to the people in the ghetto or young persons, and this has not helped. Every time they actually give them this money, it's never helping at all. What exactly?
I agree with her though, but here's the thing, the young people, the methodology of how to kind of split those people who come out as a group, and because they have the same problem, the methodology that is going to be used by the leadership of this country is going to be the same. Pick 1 or 2 or 3 people out of them, make them privileged, and then use them to kind of show that the problems which these people are talking about are non-existent. You understand? It's the same thing that the colonialists used to do. Get some people, privilege them, take them to study out, and then those people come, and then when the majority are crying out for something, these people say, what are you people talking about? Because they are not facing the same thing. It's the same problem that we have, for instance, with Honorable Gwang here. The people in Teso are sinking in poverty. I spent there a lot of time in the campaign. I don't think there is a more in the poorer region in this country than Teso. But what happened? I actually don't know. Actually, it's better. Trust me. Trust me. I spent a lot of time there as well. I even launched my manifesto there. But anyway, here is the thing. But what Museveni does, rather than address the problems of the people of Teso, he will get 1 or 2 people out of there, a Mukula, a Nogwang, and privilege them, and then make them belittle or trivialize the issues of all their colleagues. And then now it is not him speaking against your issues, trivializing your issues, it is one of your own trivializing your issues. So you kind of destroy the, and that's the same thing that he's going to try to do with the youth. Let me tell you, nobody changes his methodology at 70-something or 80-something, I don't know. They don't. He's an old man, methods don't change. So that's what is going to happen. Now then the talking points will be the same, electricity is going everywhere. Let me tell you something. Electricity, first of all, we are talking about consuming only half of the electricity we produce. But there is, even in Jinja, there is too much blackouts. There are blackouts all over, even in Kampala and so on. Okay. Number 1. Number 2, even when you get the electricity, Uganda pays the same amount of money for electricity as Sweden. Sweden has a GDP per capita of 50 $1,000. Uganda has under 900. So they are about 60 times better than us. But we pay the same amount of money for domestic power as somebody in Sweden, as somebody in Israel. Israel has 44,000 GDP per capita, but we are paying the same amount. So even when the electricity comes, even if it was to be consistent, it is too expensive. And it is very expensive for people to go and actually make some serious business out of it. And when I had the president complaining about Umeme and so on, I hope this time he actually means it. Although I've given up on him ever meaning anything. Because what happens is people generate power, then there is a middleman who takes a lot, about 700 shillings of a unit. And then the final person gets the electricity at an exorbitant fee. So that's why we are selling electricity to countries which are neighboring us, and they are actually, the electricity is cheaper than ours, yet we sell electricity to them. And then their consumers get it cheaper because of all these middlemen. And I don't know how they came. And the president said, let me wait and see. If for once, because even a dead clock is right 2 times in 24 hours, let me hope for once that he sorts that issue. Because the youth do not need handouts. Even if you gave them that, it might not help them out. They need an environment where they can actually work and do something for themselves with very expensive electricity and very intermittent, with interest rates that are out of the roof, where you cannot go to a bank and you cannot get a mortgage, you cannot get one, because the interest rates are out of the roof and they are so unrealistic. And then before even you step out, the taxman is already on you. When you're a youth, you are supposed to be getting out.
Even before you make a profit.
Before even you make the first sale, immediately you open the doors to your shop or whatever, your workshop, immediately the taxman is on you. So you have no chance in this system. But let me tell the youth something. You're on your own. Do not expect anything positive from this government. They will just choose 1 or 2 or 3 of you from different places, put them in a privileged position, and they will use those people to go and trivialize all the issues which those very people were actually part of, propagating. But once they come in a place of privilege, then now suddenly those issues don't matter. And now, what we've seen in all these years, adding a bit on to what I was saying earlier, what we've seen in all of these years is that the army is going to be, and the police is going to be used to, what the Sheikh was talking about, is going to be used to kind of quash these people and make them just more despondent, and then they settle into all sorts of things. And that's why you find so many of them in sports betting, and all sorts of other things, because that's where they have some. Because the thing about when you take hope away from people, and that's what this government has. And now his calculation is that now finally he's getting to that place where he can now free you, but still you will not catch up with the people who have been having an advantage for 40 years. Okay? It's like you're running a marathon, and then they tie 10 kilograms on you, and somebody else is running free. Then when you are left with a few kilometers to the end of the marathon, then they free you. But you can run, you might even run faster than the other person, but you will not overtake him because he has a comparative advantage. So a big head start. Now this is what his calculation. So do not expect anything new from this government. You'd be a fool to expect anything new. No, a leopard does not change its spots. And especially not at 78 or something like that. They don't. No old man changes his methodology. The youth are on their own. They are going to have to stand up. And now, the people in the villages, the peasants, every organization that they come up with to try and have a unified front, let's say on selling vanilla. Now the latest, they came up with unified fronts on selling vanilla. Then a law came which quashed that. Then they came up with a unified law, sugarcane, coffee, and all that. And all that is part of keeping all the profit-making businesses in the hands of the royal family. That's what is happening, and that's what is going to happen. It is not going to change. Okay? So when we are beginning this five-year term, we cannot be under any illusions. I told you I stopped expecting anything different from Museveni in 2006. I know the kind of person he is. I know that I cannot look into anything. The truth escapes him just once in a while, and then immediately gets back into his camouflage. And the time when he said that he's working for his children and grandchildren is the one time when the truth escaped his mouth. And then immediately he came and covered it up and so on. But that's the honest truth. Okay? Now after that, it is going to be the same old. Now, but let me finish by saying this.
Your last word.
This country is so blessed. Okay? Actually, we are so blessed. It takes a lot of work by this government to keep Ugandans poor. okay, the cooperative societies, without any input from this government, just inheriting them the way they did.
Yes.
People were so rich in those cooperative societies. They didn't have to add anything. So everything that they come up with, you see the effort that they put into keeping people poor. I have somebody who was a friend of mine who planted a lot of rice in Amuru, a very fertile place, a lot of rice. As soon as the harvest came and so many people had planted rice, guess what? They imported tons of rice from Tanzania. And it was purpose to keep the rices low. Now they have gone into palm oil. Apparently, Kalangala and all that. Now that's the new trend. People once went into eucalyptus, what? Every time the harvest comes and there is going to be a big payday for the ordinary Ugandan, I can guarantee you, as long as that old man is in that seat, he will come up with something which will make sure that payday never materializes. It never materializes with coffee, with vanilla, of course, apart from before. Sugarcane has now destroyed everybody. Now they are going into forests, Barifa forest, they are crying in Hoima and Toro Bugoma forest, in Butamira forest in Busoga. Why? Because sugar is the private business of the royal family.
Thank you, Joseph.
So don't expect anything new.
Thank you.
Just we are on our own. So the youth of Uganda, just remember this from Kabuleta. You are on your own.
Thank you, Joseph.
Can I say just a little?
Just 2 minutes. What opportunities do exist in the next 5 years for young people to do something for themselves?
Yeah.
Just 2 minutes.
Opportunity which exists is for them to work hard on their own. These handouts can never be sustainable. And you showed us the religious leaders, some religious leaders, talking about release of these young people. I also would like to advocate for that. If they are political prisoners, release them. At least people have prayed a lot for them during Ramadan. So let them be released. They are young people. And, by the time you put a young person like that, you are subduing that person. When the person comes out, can never be the same. Will become so vulnerable and will become, it's a way of exploiting. It is exploitation. So I just would like to say, young people, for us in Parliament, we had put Youth Livelihood Fund. Youth Livelihood Fund came from Youth Venture Fund. Youth Venture Fund was very difficult for young people to access, and it was through the banks. Then we kept on talking in Parliament. He was also, I think, still a member of Youth Parliament, member of Parliament, but representing the young people of the East. So we saw that Youth Venture Fund was not working, and we then changed to Youth Livelihood Fund, which accessibility should be from the district and sub-counties. Yes, Youth Livelihood Fund was not working, but it could still be evaluated and probably be reorganized, and we get the weaknesses and get some opportunities which were there in the Youth Livelihood Funds. We need these livelihood funds to address the vulnerability of our people. Okay. This is what I can say. Agriculture, we are agricultural country. Agriculture is really the way to go. But also with establishment of small-scale industries, these processing industries. If we have these processing industries, we have the cooperatives, then people can stand on their own. What we need is sustainability and self-reliance. Something, when you give something, the way I saw President was giving, money to the young people of Kampala here, the ghetto group. That is never sustainable. It is just like the explanation given by Joseph Kabuleta. So that explanation is true. My last advice to youth is, let us be peaceful, let us work very hard, let us come together and try to address self-reliance. I say self-reliance should be participatory. Yet it does not rely on handouts, but loans come to support. For us as government, we will still try to say these loans the interests are too high for our people. Can you reduce the interest so that our people are able to access?
Okay.
And I will also appeal to government that we need free education for primary and secondary. Primary is basic. Let us give free primary and secondary.
It does exist.
Eh?
I thought it already exists.
No.
I'm a product of UPE and USP.
No, UPE is not free education. That is universal. But free education, but should be quality. It shouldn't be the way we think that is for the poor, that is for the poor. No. Let us try to make it attractive to all and should be quality education. That will mean that we are targeting.
We're out of time. We're out of time.
Thank you.
Honorable Gwang, your last word on the show.
First of all, I would like to say this, that I need time, which of course
we don't have.
We
just have 2 minutes.
On the question of the young people, and specifically what we were meant to discuss, in my opinion, is there are 4 core sectors which government is concentrating in terms of addressing the challenges which we have at hand. Number 1 is the sector of commercializing our agriculture. And if you look at the National Development Plan, that's why for me, I am a bit focused. I look at the NDP 3, I look at the budget which we have passed, I look at the NRM manifesto. And these facts I've said, that's number 1 sector. Number 2 is the sector of industrialization. If you look at that, for instance, I want to just take a case study of Namamve today. As I speak now, there are 305 factories in Namamve. Employing, out of the 305, 71 are operational. Of the 71 which are operational, there are about 11,000 jobs which are already created. So what is our purpose and what is our focus? There are going to be additional 22 industrial parks all over other parts of the country. That is the area where we expect, like Joseph was talking about, cheap electricity. It is true we have a plan now specifically to have a direct line for factories which is going to bypass the middlemen, to have cheap electricity for factories and industries for parts of creating, to helping them reduce on the operational costs, to give us jobs to help employ our people. The last one is on services and ICT. So, you know, we have been talking about, that's why I want really to request the management of Next Media. The next time, give me the opportunity to come as government and unpack what we have for the young people. And please bring me here. I have one moderate which is able to debate with also alternatives, but not to bring me here with the... Anyway, but the last one, I really want, first of all, thank, and of course I don't associate myself with the comments my brothers always made. They are very toxic. Joseph Kabuleta. Why? I know he's inside of the angle. But also I want to say, no royal family in Uganda is interested in grabbing anything. No, I want to put that on record. Be it a kingdom or what, it's not there.
Okay, Honorable, thank you very much.
And thank you for the viewers.
Thank you. Thank you. The conversation continues on Twitter. The hashtag is #NXT Big Talk. My name is Kanara Mugume. Thank you to Honorable Peter Ogwang, Honorable Betty Awolo-Chan, and Joseph Kabuleta. We'll meet next time on Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11 here on Next Radio and NBS. Good morning.
Where wealth belongs to a certain select few, very, very few. So few they can fit in one room. And the rest of Ugandans are just supposed to, to survive and not to thrive. So that's what we are trying to break. We are trying to break the suppression, the oppression that is financial, and liberating people of the national resources that are theirs by right, and not to be observers even as the national cake is being distributed, or not to see figures of growth apparently attributed to our country flying out of budget speeches and so on, without it having any impact on their wallets. Now that is what we want to change. We want any growth that this country enjoys, and we are going into a very good period in regard to growth.
That you belong to this...
Be reduced to describing wealth as a suit. How much does a suit cost? We're talking about real wealth. Because we're talking about real wealth. So somebody having a car, driving a suit, or rather driving a car, having a suit, and things like that, and you think that is wealth, that is how far this government has suppressed us. That we actually even consider a suit to be wealth. Now, we are talking about a very rich country, which is rich in all sorts of resources. And now, the corporate people or people who, they're counting their wealth in the number of suits they have in the wardrobe. That is really sad. And actually, that's exactly what I have come to change. So that we get to a point where our wealth is real wealth, not virtual wealth. You can come out and look smart and look nice, and yet actually you are sitting on a whole load of problems at home. And but you just have to keep up appearances. Now we want to change that, where wealth belongs to.
Kabuleta for Uganda. You rock 'cause we rock. We building on the rock. No don't sound the sauce. Uganda for Ugandans. Kabuleta for Ugandans. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. It is a revolution. Providing a solution. From the bottom to the top. We're going on a journey, yeah, yeah, yeah. To the top, yeah. To the top, yeah, yeah.
Kabuleta, providing a solution. Me sing and say, Kabuleta. For Uganda, tell them say, Kabuleta. Finance or solution, me tell you this, Kabuleta. For Uganda is juggernaut.
Been across the nation, setting everyone in motion. People looking for solutions, saying we are reclaiming our country again. Having this beat from the national liberation, rocking this nation. We going for Uganda for Uganda, for Uganda.
From the bottom to the top. Welcome to the Rock Nation.